they are, producing some problem for the organization. Maybe they are emitting too much dust or the smoke or anything.
But we cannot do something. We cannot touch with the internal issues. We cannot address.
Yeah, internal issues you can address, but external you cannot.
No, yeah, what I mean is the external issue.
Yeah. Okay, so same four clauses. 4.1 is internal issues. Now relevant to environment. 4.2 interested. But if it is integrated management system, then QMS and EMS also. If it is only environmental management system, then only related to environment. So you will identify, organization shall identify interested parties and their requirements. In this case, maybe community, maybe the interested party, or the laborers, so that they can be interested parties, because their activities can be affected by some activity of the organization. And then 4.3, again the scope, same thing, no change. The only change is, according to QMS, quality management system, you can exclude something, that this requirement is not applicable. For example, if calibration is not there, so you can exclude that one. If you are not designing, then you can exclude that. But in the environmental management system, you cannot exclude any requirement of the standard. This is the only difference. Okay. As I explained, post-delivery activities in the quality management system, if organization is not giving any post-delivery activity, so they can exclude it, that this requirement is not applicable, and they will justify it. But in EMS, no exclusion. All the requirements of the standard are applicable. This is the only difference. So, context of the organization. Which are related to environment. So that you will determine. That organization will determine. Similarly, interested parties relevant to environment. Sometimes customers they are also relevant to environment, because some products maybe can create some problem for the environment.
Hello? Hello?
Okay, so in this case, customer can be interested party. So these are again some examples which we have already discussed. So I will not go into details, because these are general things.
There one more neighbors and this one to be mentioned there the interested party.
What?
No, but it is just example, but it should be added the neighbors and
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Scope, again you can see that there is no exclusion or the requirement not applicable. All the requirements of the standard are applicable. And then clause number 5 and 6, leadership and planning. Again clause number 5, leadership, top management commitment, same requirements as we discussed in quality management system. Again 3 clauses, same clauses, leadership and commitment, but there is no 5.1.2. In this side it is mentioned 5.1.2, but in the standard there is only clause number 5.1, not 5.1.1 or 5.1.2. 5.2. So please cross it.
Both are not there. 5.1.1 also not. 5.1
Yeah.
not.
Only 5.1.
5.1.
The general requirements related to top management. Same requirements that the management shall demonstrate leadership. Only 5.1, then 5.2. So same requirement that the top management shall demonstrate leadership. Okay, how they can demonstrate this leadership? It is mentioned again in the standard. Again, directing people, motivational factors, providing assistance, accountability. So same requirements which we discussed in the quality analysis. That ensure environmental policy is established. So instead of quality policy, now environmental policy. Instead of quality objectives, now environmental objectives. Okay. Then 5.2, environmental policy. Again, top management shall establish, implement and maintain environmental policy. But some commitments are more in this environmental policy. Commitments related to environment. Okay. Otherwise, the requirements are same. There is no change. Only the commitments are different. For example, this includes commitment of continued improvement. It was also in the QMS. Same commitment. And then maybe that satisfy applicable requirements. Again same. But some commitments related to environment. So those are extra. Otherwise, the requirements are same. Communication, same requirement. That it will be communicated to employees and available to interested parties, other interested parties. So with that we already discussed. Availability, you can send them through email, and maybe you can put your policy on your website. Now it is available to every person, every interested party. But for the employees, the requirement is to communicate, and communication is two-way. So some trainings sessions are required. Okay. Roles and responsibilities and authorities, again same requirement, no change. That the top management shall ensure that the roles and responsibilities are defined, and it is done through job descriptions, through organization charts, any responsibility metrics, any method you can use. It is up to the organization. So same clauses, instead of quality, only the environment. Clause number 6. Planning, now there is change. Clause number 6.1. Risk and opportunities. Again, risk and opportunities relevant to 4.1 and 4.2. Risk, you will identify the risks related to interested parties and their requirements, and internal issues and external issues. So you will identify, you will determine risk and opportunities. And now 6.1.2, that is environmental aspects and their impacts. So do you have any idea what is environmental aspect? What is environmental aspect?
Things taken into consideration with regards concerning environment, what could affect that, what environment can have an impact on us, on the entity, or what our actions can have an impact on the environment.
Yeah.
Actually, from government rules, this aspect where the
No, it's not necessary. Aspect. So
It's affected by environment.
this aspect. Organization's activity or product or services that can interact with the environment. Any activity of the organization that can interact with the environment. So what activity of the organization can interact with the environment?
Material damage material damage
Material
damage.
material
damage.
waste disposal.
Usage
So
of
how
waste
it,
disposal.
how it can interact with the environment?
Improper usage of chemicals. Improper handling of chemicals.
Improper handling.
You know, it's
Internal
internal
activities
activities and
and
external activities.
Wastage.
For raining, so it will be, the material will be put outside the yard.
Okay.
For the raining,
Mhm.
it will be,
Yeah.
It's for example, properly, for example, we didn't clean properly, it's, the chemicals go through the drainages, it's reach in the sea or river,
Mhm.
it will affect the plant
Okay.
or fish or something like that.
Okay. Okay.
It's an impact. Right.
Yeah. Aspect. First of all, aspect. Any activity of the organization that can interact with the environment.
Like motor pool area.
Suppose we
Motor pool
put
area.
Water pool. Yeah.
Emissions from during the operation, emissions, fumes.
Yeah.
wastage, we are putting the wastage.
So in this case, if you want to identify environmental aspect in the organization, so what you will consider? For example, if we are here in this room, and you want to determine what are the environmental aspects in this room. So what you will consider?
Waste, so plastic bottles.
Yeah. Very good.
See.
this cup.
See.
What is the environmental aspect in the building?
Asbestos.
The line is,
But this is not asbestos.
Heat ejected from the room. HVAC process.
Temperature of the room.
But temperature of, yeah, can be. Yes, you can identify it as aspect. So if you want to identify the environmental aspect, so what you will, determine, or what will you will consider?
Waste material, waste things.
No. First of all, you will think that, in this room, is there any activity, is there anything which can pollute air? Because that is the environment for us.
Yes.
Which can pollute water, can pollute land, energy or resources, natural resources. So this is environment for us. Now we identify, is there anything which can pollute air?
Smoking.
But there is no smoking done in the room.
So carbon dioxide and monoxide.
Talking about the room.
No, this is not.
So, for the air is all of these people gathered in the room breathing.
No,
It's not polluted. It's not polluted, but
No.
it's an aspect.
Yeah. Any activity in this room? Any activity of the organization?
That is happening right now.
Writing. Using the pen.
But how it can pollute air?
It will go on fumes.
So maybe there is no aspect related to
Over here.
Inside the room.
Inside the room.
yeah, inside the room. Okay, now we think, is there any activity which can pollute what? Water?
No.
Land?
Yes.
Yes.
If we don't dispose the waste properly.
Yeah, land, yes. Because we are using this plastic water bottles. We are generating some waste. Okay. So the standard requirement, first thing is to identify aspect. What are the aspects in the organization? And that you will check every process. Again, processes are there. Purchasing process, so you will check. Is there any activity polluting the air? Forget that, you know what, that is, how much they are polluting.
Right now, just to identify.
Identify. Okay. And then after the identification, now you will check the impact. Whether that impact is significant or not. So how you will identify that this impact is significant or not?
This matrix.
Yeah, you can use that one. And maybe you can use any legal requirement as your standard. For example, noise level. Legally defined that 85 dB is the maximum limit. So if any process, the noise level is more than 85, it's mean it is significant. It is significantly impacting the environment. Because it is more than the legal requirement.
It should come in the environmental. It should come in the environmental.
Yes.
Yeah.
Noise is environment. Noise pollution.
Noise pollution.
So that's it.
Yeah, this also happens here. Because sometimes it can be a risk for hearing. But it is also environment. Noise pollution. Too much noise.
Should come.
Yeah. Okay. So first thing to determine whether the impact is significant, your legal requirements. If it is beyond the legal requirement, it means the impact is significant. Then organization can also define its own standard below the legal limit, not beyond the legal limit. Okay. Some standards are defined for vehicles emission. Yes. So if your vehicles are emitting some smoke beyond that limit, that carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide, some levels are defined. So it's mean it's a significant impact. So second thing is impact. Now you will check. This is the aspect. And what is the impact? So the definition of impact is any change to the environment. So if the impact is a change in the environment, now you will determine that change is significant or not. And then you will define your criteria.
For example, result, impact.
Impact is, as I give you that vehicle emission. If, for example, the carbon dioxide level is, for example, 20 milligram, okay, and when you check your vehicle emission, it is, for example, 30 milligram. Now it is significant because it is beyond the legal limit. So it means it is impacting the environment significantly.
Sir, if we are talking about the impact here, our consideration or the what do you call that, the criteria for this one is the legal and maybe the
And
standard
companies own.
and companies own
Yeah.
standard
Let me
policies.
Yes.
check.
Mostly the.
Yeah, you
So
can
the
use this.
legal-
You can
legal
use this table.
Risk assessment.
So you can define your criteria using this table also. That you will use that probability and severity. If there is a chance of any spillage, for example, spillage is activity. So you will check, is there the probability of spillage in your organization? If you are dealing with that LPG gases, so then you will check what are the chances of the leakage, and then consequences. So again you can define maybe like if it is your criteria is 20. So if the rating is below than 20, it is not significant. If it is more than 20, so it means that aspect is significant. So number one is the legal requirement, and number two is your own criteria. So you can use these methods to check whether the aspect is significant or not. Is it clear?
Yes.
So this standard requirement is to determine environmental aspects and establish criteria for the identification of significant aspects. And you will use that criteria to identify that which environmental aspect has significant impact on the environment. And one more term is used in the standard, that is yes, this life cycle perspective. Life cycle. And what are the stages in the life cycle? Raw material, then designing, production, distribution, use, and end of life. This is life cycle perspective. And again, the requirement of the standard, when you identify environmental aspects and their impacts. So life cycle perspective should be considered. It's mean you will identify environmental aspects and their impacts starting from the raw material. So when you purchase your raw material, then you will check what are the environmental aspects related to this material. What are the environmental aspects in the transportation of that material? What are the environmental aspects in the designing, production, okay, transportation, use, till the end of life of that product or service.
Disposal. End of life meaning
They don't finish that life.
to dispose it, for example.
Yeah. So this is the requirement of the standard related to environmental aspects and impacts. And when you determine aspects, which I asked you, so what you will consider? Please. Emission to air. Emission to release to water, release to land. So these are the consideration for identification of environmental aspects. Is it clear? Any question? Okay, so we'll take now break. Prayer plus lunch break.
Sir, if I'm going to talk about the EMS, that it means I already considered the QMS, or is it separate?
IMS?
QMS, the EMS, the environmental management system. If I'm talking about the EMS, that means that I am considering also the QMS.
No, IMS can be like, EMS plus occupational health and safety. It's not
the quality.
required that quality is included.
It's not this.
Integrated management system mean any two standards. If you combine any two, QMS, EMS, occupational health and safety, energy management system. When you combine two standards,
Okay.
then it is integrated management system. It is not necessary that one of them should be QMS. It is not required.
It's not required.
Okay, now we'll take break.